We've all wished we could wake up feeling completely rested, with all of the energy and motivation in the world to conquer our goals. But for most of us, the reality is much different. We often feel tired, unmotivated, sometimes even depressed, and simply give in to the habit of hitting that tempting snooze button once or twice before finally dragging ourselves out of bed. But what if there existed a natural way of cultivating motivation and energy that was much more powerful than any amount of caffeine you could ever consume? There is only one method that has been purported to give such benefits consistently, and it's Nofap. In this video, we will explore what Nofap is, what its benefits are, and why it works. So first, what is Nofap? Nofap is a term that was coined around the year 2011, which refers to the practice of abstaining from masturbation and pornography. Although the demographic of Nofap members tends to be mostly young men, its benefits apply to all. You might wonder, why on earth would people refuse to give into such a temptation? After all, masturbation has been proven to be a healthy practice, given that it isn't abused. But proving that something isn't unhealthy doesn't mean that abstaining from it is unhealthy. As a matter of fact, the single most interesting thing about Nofap is the magnitude of the benefits its members have reported. These benefits include, but are not limited to, increased motivation and overall drive, increased energy levels, increased happiness, boosted confidence, lower levels of stress and anxiety, higher self-acceptance, healthier attitude and appreciation for the other sexes, heightened spirituality, better muscle growth, better sleep, increased focus and concentration, boosted physical performance and stamina, improved or cured erectile dysfunction, improved sperm quality, and much more. So why is Nofap so powerful? You might be skeptical about the claims listed above when it comes to the benefits Nofap can produce. If there was a drug that was marketed to have these benefits with very little or no side effects, it would be the most popular drug in history. But such a pill does not exist, and the reason for that is that Nofap's powers come from how difficult it is to practice. Let me explain. Every living being seems to be driven by a single absolute rule: to maximize the number of offsprings and their chances of survival, such that they too can reproduce. This rule can be observed in the physiological systems that govern every living being. Let us define this rule as the absolute rule, which is to maximize the number of offsprings and their chances of survival. This aims both at the survival of the species, the procreation aspect, and the survival of the individual, such that the procreation aspect can be fulfilled. Now, one of these systems is the dopaminergic system, the one responsible for motivation. This system works like this. If an action's outcome is known to increase either the number of offsprings or their chances of survival, whether directly or indirectly, then the dopaminergic system releases dopamine to that individual's brain. This burst of dopamine then creates a profound feeling of motivation to perform that action. And once it is accomplished, more dopamine, alongside other feel-good neurochemicals like serotonin, is released to the brain as a reward. This creates a pattern of recognizing what actions will fulfill the absolute rule, creating motivation and energy to enable its pursuit, and rewarding the individual once they have accomplished such action. This is the basic underlying principle behind all behaviors across all species, from plants to insects to, you guessed it, human beings. There are many examples of how this principle works. The simplest example is sex. It is clearly the action that best fulfills the absolute rule, which is that of procreation. Therefore, it is only logical that this is one of the natural activities that feels so good. Another, more complicated example is high-calorie foods. For thousands of years, human beings were scavenging food amongst nature. Since food was pretty scarce before the discovery of agriculture, as a general rule, the more calories were obtained from a certain action, say hunting, the more that action fulfilled the absolute rule of prioritizing the procreation and development of the species. As such, high-calorie foods like meat or sugary berries released great amounts of dopamine. After thousands of years of evolution, the human brain is still programmed to be driven towards high-calorie foods, hence the phenomenal success of fast food, for example. So after a big meal or after procreation, the brain is flooded with serotonin, a neurochemical responsible for satisfaction, which tells the individual that whatever action they have just performed will make them satisfied when repeated. This, again, is part of one of the systems nature devised to fulfill the absolute rule. On the contrary, if an individual spends a long enough amount of time without performing any action that fulfills the absolute rule, they will begin to crave this satisfaction, and their brain will release even more dopamine to induce more motivation and energy to carry out such an action. This is precisely where Nofap's powers come in. If an individual does not give into the temptations of masturbation, their brain will start to crave the serotonin released by that activity and release even more dopamine to motivate that individual to pursue it. Therefore, abstaining from masturbation will produce more motivation and greater levels of energy for one to channel into whatever outlet they seem fit. So when someone goes for a long time without orgasm, it is akin to them going hungry for a dangerous amount of time, for they have not fulfilled the absolute rule for a long amount of time. When that happens, the brain sends signals to the rest of the body to motivate it to fulfill whatever action is in dire need. So, when abstaining from ejaculation for a long time, the brain will feel like something is wrong, thinking that some fundamental purpose isn't being fulfilled, which is why the individual doesn't have access to sexual opportunities. The brain will then push the body into a full throttle phase, which will motivate it to pursue its purpose and better itself enough such that the sexual opportunities may arise. Through this process, one may choose to orient this newfound motivation and heightened energy levels towards whatever goals they desire, making Nofap a true catalyst of strength and drive for reaching your purpose.